Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the different steps of the light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reaction of photosynthesis. So first you want to take a look at this picture right here. You have to be able to fill out every single part of this picture, including these four parts, on your own, okay? It's very likely that you're going to see this exact picture on the test. So when you look at this picture, on the left side you see this arrow coming into the thylakoid. So first off, the entire photosynthesis process happened in this this organelle called chloroplast. Okay, it is not called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about the different steps of photosynthesis. You should be able to fill out this entire picture on your own, including these four molecules as well. So photosynthesis, first off, it happens in this organelle. This big organelle right here, it's called chloroplast. Chloroplast and chlorophyll are two words that you might get confused sometimes. Chloroplast is the organelle, and chlorophyll is the pigment on the thylakoid membrane. So each one of these little discs is a thylakoid, and on the thylakoid membrane, there is chlorophyll, which is the pigment that absorbs light energy. So on the left side right here, you should be able to fill out that this is the light-dependent reaction because light is coming in, so you can fill in light right here. And water is coming in and oxygen is coming out. This entire process of light-dependent reaction happens in the thylakoid, so this right here should be thylakoid. And then the light-dependent reaction also produces ATP and NADPH. Both of these molecules have a lot of energy, and these energy are used to make sugar in the Calvin cycle. So sugar is coming out right here. This right here is stroma because outside of the thylakoid is the stroma, okay? So the Calvin cycle or the light independent reaction happened in the stroma. And the molecule that's coming in right here is CO2. So if you don't know how to fill this out, you just heard the answers. This picture is also on one of the last few slides of Cells Lecture 4 and 5 PowerPoint, and you can go take a look over there as well. But the focus of this video should be the individual steps of the light-dependent and the light-independent reaction. So let's first take a look at this picture right here and go through each step, and then we'll do all the hand thing, okay? So the first thing that happens during the light-dependent reaction is, first off, again, you need to know that this process happened on the thylakoid membrane inside of the chloroplast. So this entire molecule, this entire organelle is the chloroplast, and these are the thylakoid. And the light-dependent reaction happened on the thylakoid membrane. So the first step that happens is light comes into photosystem 2. Photosystem 2 is the place where the light energy is converted into energy in the electrons. So it's an energy conversion process. Photosystem 2 is able to do that because photosystem 2 has the pigment chlorophyll, and chlorophyll can harvest energy from light. So light comes into photosystem 2, electron get excited. Okay. The next step is because these electrons get excited, and as you can follow the yellow line, these electrons can be removed all the way to the end. So the result is we need electrons to replenish the electron lost in photosystem 2. So the next step is water splitting right here. There's oxygen being made, there's hydrogen being left in the thylakoid space. But the important part about water is that it produces electrons to fulfill this loss of electrons at photosystem 2. So light comes into photosystem 2, electrons get excited, water split, electrons come to photosystem 2. That's our first step right here. The next step is that the electrons, after they get excited, they can't do anything yet. Actually, it takes a lot before the electrons can send its energy to actually do something. But the electrons are going to go through these proteins. These are electron carriers, and they are proteins. These proteins are called the electron transport chain because it transports electrons. But as the electrons move down the electron transport chain like this, the energy of the electron is used to pump hydrogen from the stroma to the thylakoid space, from the stroma to the thylakoid space, okay? And the reason for that is that we want to build a really high concentration of hydrogen in the thylakoid space. So electrons move down the electron transport chain and it's losing energy during this process and pumping hydrogen from the stroma to the thylakoid space, okay? And because the electrons lost all that energy, now our electrons don't have energy anymore. But before this electron can move any further, we need to re-energize the electrons. So light comes in again at photosystem 1 and re-energize that electron. So light comes into photosystem 1, electrons get re-energized, and then electrons move through a short electron transport chain, which are also made out of, these are also made out of proteins. And then, as you can see, electrons came all the way right here, and then the electrons combine with NADP plus to make NADPH. So NADP plus, if you remember from one of the previous videos, that NADP plus is what we call an electron carrier. It's the oven mitt for the hot potato, right? It has to be able to carry this high energy electron to the Calvin cycle in order to make sugar. So as you can see right here, NADP plus combine with the electrons in order to make NADPH, and NADPH go on to the light independent reaction, and the purpose of NADPH is to bring all that energy in the high energy electron. So these electrons are in NADPH now. NADPH is going to bring that energy to the light independent reaction, and then that energy is going to be used to make sugar. And then our last step right here is we have all these hydrogen built up in the thylakoid space. We have really high concentration of hydrogen in the thylakoid space. And what's going to happen to all these hydrogen? These hydrogen are going to move through the ATP synthase. The ATP synthase is this protein right here, this large protein. This large protein, as you can see, there's an arrow right here. This large protein spins as the hydrogen moves through. It's like a water turbine that spins as a result of hydrogen moving through. So hydrogen is like the water for a water turbine, okay? So as the ATP synthase spins, it's able to put an ADP and a phosphate group together in order to make ATP. And as you can remember, ATP is a molecule with a lot of energy, and this molecule with a lot of energy is going to go on to the light independent reaction and then use that energy to make sugar. So let's go through this step one more time. Stand up and show you how I will do this, and this is how I remember this process, okay? Light comes in, so you should do this with me and look at this picture while you're doing it with me, okay? And try to remember it. You should be able to draw out this entire process. So I would strongly suggest you to take out a pen and a paper and then either write out the process of each step and where each step happens, or draw out this thylakoid membrane right here and draw every single one of these steps. That's how you can remember it. That's how you're going to get your questions right. Okay, so you ready? Light comes into photosystem 2. Electrons get excited. Water split. Water comes to photosystem 2. Electrons move down the electron transport chain and lose energy. Electrons' energy pump hydrogen from the stroma to the thylakoid space. Light comes into photosystem 1. Electrons get re-energized, and then the electrons move through a short electron transport chain and combine with NADP plus to make NADPH. Hydrogen moves from the thylakoid space to the stroma and cause the ATP synthase to spin in order to form ATP from ADP and phosphate group. Now we're forming ATP. This is the entire process, okay? All right, this next step is the Calvin cycle. So the Calvin cycle takes in the products of the light dependent reaction, which is ATP and NADPH. So as you can see right here, there's ATP and NADPH used throughout the entire Calvin cycle. So what do you need to notice about this Calvin cycle? Because you don't need to know what this molecule is, this molecule, this molecule, this molecule. They're all intermediates. They're just, a part of the process. They're the middle steps. But what you should know is that, first off, the Calvin cycle happens inside the stroma. See, it's in the stroma, which is inside the liquid inside of the chloroplast. The Calvin cycle needs to take in a certain number of carbon dioxide in order to make sugar or glucose. Okay, so your job is to count how many carbons is in one carbon dioxide. In one carbon dioxide, CO2, which is one carbon. So if you're putting in to the Calvin cycle 6 carbon dioxide, that gives you 6 carbons. So 6 carbons can make a product with also 6 carbons. So it will be 6 of those little dots, okay? However, it says right here, when you first come out of the Calvin cycle, you have a 3 carbon compound. So right here is a 3 carbon compound, but you can make 2 of those. So if you're putting in 6 carbon dioxide, you can make 2 of the 3 carbon compound, so that's also 6 carbons. So what you need to remember is that however many carbons that you put into the Calvin cycle, however many carbons that you can get out, okay? So if you look at these questions, why is the Calvin cycle important? It provides sugar that contains stable and high energy to support plant cells, right? So plants are called autotrophs because they can make these high energy sugar. Why are ATP and NADPH necessary for this cycle? NADPH provides high energy electrons, and ATP provides energy for this cycle. If you can remember, ATP, the energy is stored in between. There are 3 phosphate groups, right? It's stored in between the phosphate groups, and it's in the bond in between the phosphate groups. And then how many ATP molecules are needed? If you just count, 12 plus 6 equals 18. And then the last question is, what happens to the 3 carbon molecules that leave the cycle? The 3 carbon molecules that leave the cycle becomes sugar and other compounds. All right, so happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Right here, I'm going to give you a good news. Since you're watching this video, I know that you're probably working really hard and getting prepared for this test, so I'm going to reward you with 1 extra credit. The word that you need to choose for the extra credit, that you need to write down for the extra credit. Okay, remember this word. The word will be blue ducky. 2 words. Blue ducky, because I have this blue ducky right here that my friend gave me. So the key word is blue ducky. That will give you 1 extra credit on the test. All right? Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Our audience requested before. Here's Marshy for the end of the video as well. Bye!